Tonight on Northwestern Politicat, listen to Michigan, how a group of Democratic voters in Michigan could impact tonight's primary race.
And how college students voted over the weekend in South Carolina. Is the next generation looking for a new generational leader?
Plus, NNN sits down for an exclusive interview with Illinois Representative Jan Schakowsky. All that and more tonight on Northwestern Politicat.
It's your politics
right now. Good evening and welcome to Northwestern Politicat. I'm Paris Franzway.
And I'm Aria Wozniak. We're coming to you tonight in the thick of 2024 presidential primary season.
Primaries in Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina are all in the books. Over the weekend, former President Donald Trump recorded a sizable win in Nikki Haley's home state.
With the win, Trump secured 47 of the state's 50 delegates. He continues to lead the field by a wide margin with 110 total delegates. Haley is in the second with 20 delegates. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy both dropped out of the race with less than 10 delegates. 1,215 delegates are needed to secure the Republican nomination.
And happening right now, polls are closing in the Michigan primary. We'll be following the results and have an update for you later in the show.
While all eyes are on the showdown between Trump and Haley, Democrats are making waves as well. A contingent of Michigan Democrats, frustrated with the United States' response to the Israel-Hamas war, have pledged to withhold their support from Biden in the primary. Politicat's Gabrielle Coriati recently traveled to the Wolverine State and filed this report.
I never experienced in the United States for the last 60 years a time like what we have right now.
Dr. Ali Mitwali is one of the co-founders of the Atawid Islamic Center in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mitwali moved to the United States from Egypt in 1963 at age 21. He says growing up, he saw the U.S. as a world savior.
From being a child, the U.S. were known around the world to help the needy, to help in the disaster area.
Now, he's one of over 300,000 Michigan residents with Middle Eastern or North African ancestry, according to the U.S. Census. During the 2020 election, Joe Biden won Michigan by 154,000 votes. Mitwali says he's terrified of a second Trump presidency. But now, because of Biden's position on the Israel-Palestine conflict, he, along with many of the state's Arab Americans, are not prepared to cast a second ballot for the president.
I'm really feeling very bad that the U.S. are not standing a little stronger against the bombardment of civilians and hospitals and schools, and that's not the U.S.
Mitwali says he wants Biden to stand up stronger for Palestinian civilians. This change, of course, is the goal of Listen to Michigan, a campaign focused on getting Michiganders to vote uncommitted in today's primary as a statement to the Biden administration.
We are a key constituency in a key swing state.
Dearborn City Councilman Mustafa Hammoud is one of the over 30 Michigan elected officials endorsing Listen to Michigan. He campaigned for Biden in 2020, but says he feels the National Democratic Party isn't taking Arab American concerns about Palestine seriously.
That narrative is starting to finally get out that Michigan's not a magical state. It's really just a matter of delivering for people. We want tangible change. We're tired of conversations.
With 8 months until Election Day, Hammoud and organizers say new policy changes won't rule out them casting a Biden ballot.
You can count us out of this primary, but this is our way of telling him, like, hey, man, we want you to do the right thing.
And for Arab American voters like Mitwali, the next few months are key to the decisions they'll make in November.
So my vote is going to be wasted until maybe a week ago or so when he started talking about two-state solution, because this is the way out of this dilemma.
From Grand Rapids, Michigan, Gabrielle Coriati, Politicat.
Thanks, Gabrielle. We'll keep you updated on the Michigan primary results later this evening.
With the Republican primary down to just two candidates, former Governor Nikki Haley and former President Donald Trump, there's a clear divide when it comes to their views on foreign policy. While both are Republicans, Haley's stances on some issues align more closely with President Joe Biden's. Politicat's Jeremy Fredericks has the story.
Good evening, Paris. One of the biggest issues is the response to Alexei Navalny's death. Navalny, a Putin critic and advocate for democracy in Russia, died earlier this month in a Russian prison. In response, President Biden introduced a new sanctions package that targets leading Russian companies.
That's why I'm announcing more than 500 new sanctions in response to Putin's brutal war of conquest, in response to Alexei Navalny's death.
Trump responded on Truth Social by comparing himself to Navalny. He said Navalny's death made him, quote, more aware of what is happening in our country. It is a slow, steady progression with crooked radical left politicians, prosecutors, and judges leading us down a path of destruction. Also, Saturday marked the second anniversary of the start of the war between Russia and Ukraine. Biden is calling for House Republicans to pass a bill that would provide more funding to Ukraine and Israel after Trump told them to oppose such legislation.
The way they're walking away from the threat of Russia, the way they're walking away from NATO, the way they're walking away from meeting our obligations is just shocking.
The U.S. has been joined by its NATO allies against Russia. Biden and Haley support the alliance. All countries in NATO are supposed to spend 2% of their GDP on the military, but 19 of the 30 countries didn't hit that mark last year, according to NATO. Trump says the U.S. won't defend countries that fail to hit that mark.
I said, everybody's going to pay. They said, well, if we don't pay, are you still going to protect us? I said, absolutely not. They couldn't believe the answer.
All three major candidates largely agree on supporting Israel in its war against Hamas. Biden has faced criticism from progressive Democrats about not doing enough to protect civilians in Gaza. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Jeremy. Former President Donald Trump stopped by CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, outside of Washington, D.C. last Saturday, warning that 4 more years of President Biden might lead to the U.S. in World War III. Politicat's Maria Heim reports from Washington, describing the conservative inspiration Trump has set internationally.
The Americans should know that you are a source of inspiration for billions of people all across the world.
Meet Mihail Niemtu. He's traveled to CPAC from his home country of Romania.
I've just published this book called The Trump Phenomenon, and it's about how Mr. Trump managed to project this vision about the Western civilization.
This year's annual theme at CPAC, Where Globalism Goes to Die, attracted far-right conservatives from all over the world for its annual conference.
It's why you in America and we in the world need Trump back in that White House.
Members of Congress, like Representative Dan Bishop, are also concerned about globalism, an anti-nationalist sentiment focusing on other countries.
The intellectual debate of our time, it is, in its essence, I think it is anti-God, it is anti-Christian, it is anti-individual.
People from across the globe are attending this year's CPAC, rallying behind and supporting just one person, and that is former President Donald Trump.
We're not respected anywhere anymore. We're laughed at. We've become a joke as a country.
Trump's America First influence extends to other countries' policies.
Australia, we're letting all these people in, we have all this crime, unexpected crime. With Trump, his influence in stopping this.
President Bukele of El Salvador has fought the country's serious gang violence problem with mass arrests and incarceration, warning Americans that similar problems could arise in the U.S.
It took us 50 years, 2 wars, 250,000 lives, and 1/3 of our population displaced, and a near miracle to get our country back.
Salvadorans who support his policies see changes in their country.
We came from the most dangerous country to the safest country in Central America.
Different countries, similar goals. In Washington, Maria Heim, Politicat.
Trump's appearance at CPAC comes amid a busy schedule that's filled with not just campaign stops, but also court appearances. As a refresher, Trump is facing 91 criminal charges across 4 cases. The 2 federal cases are being overseen by Special Counsel Jack Smith, the 2020 election interference case and the classified documents case. He's also being charged in Georgia alongside over a dozen co-defendants for their alleged plot to overturn the election results in that state. And in New York, Trump is facing charges stemming from hush money payments during the 2016 election cycle. A New York judge recently ordered Trump to pay over $350 million in his civil fraud trial, a decision some speakers at CPAC were quick to jump on.
The utterly corrupted and politicized judicial system in parts of this country fines him $350 million. I honestly can't think of a more absurd or obscene court judgment that I've ever seen in my life.
Earlier this month, a 3-judge panel for the D.C. Circuit Court ruled that Trump does not have presidential immunity from federal prosecution, a ruling he has appealed to the Supreme Court. A decision by the court to take up the case could come any day now.
Staying in the courtroom, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, who is overseeing President Trump's Georgia election case, finds herself at the center of a high-stakes controversy. Politicat's Micah Sandy explains what we know so far.
Good evening and thank you. District Attorney Willis is facing allegations of romantic entanglement with Nathan Wade. Wade, the lead prosecutor for the case, Trump and other co-defendants are demanding Fulton County Superior Judge Scott McAfee to remove both Willis and Wade from the case. With many updates within the past week, let's break down the web of accusations, legal proceedings, and the potential consequences all of this could have. Former Trump campaign official Michael Roman's defense team first made the accusations in a January 8th court motion. Roman suggested that Willis hired Wade due to their relationship, since he didn't have prior experience in leading a high-profile criminal prosecution. Despite the lack of experience, Wade was reported to have been paid over $650,000 for his work, raising questions whether Willis reaped financial benefits from hiring him. In a February 2 court filing, both Willis and Wade alleged that a personal relationship only developed after Wade's hiring. An evidentiary hearing was held on February 15 and 16, in which Willis, Wade, and other witnesses were called to testify about the relationship. Willis's testimony was contentious at times, as defense lawyers sought to establish a financial conflict of interest. Last Friday, Trump lawyer Steve Sado submitted cell phone data evidence Friday that appears to show Wade visited Willis's neighborhood 35 times from April to November of 2021, a year before the alleged start of the relationship. If Judge McAfee disqualifies Willis and Wade from the case, a new prosecutor will be assigned, meaning that new charges could be filed or the case could be thrown out completely. It might also delay the trial until after Election Day. The next hearing has been scheduled for March 1st. Back to you at the desk.
Coming up, we take a look at how NU students plan to cast their ballots on Super Tuesday.
And with the South Carolina primary in the books, we take a look at how that state's youngest voters cast their ballots.
My relationship with Giannis is unique. We're from the same country, we're from the same city. Being a Northwestern alum, I think, has tremendous advantages in the sports industry. To me, that community, it's been with me for 20 plus years.
Welcome back. Every 4 years, Super Tuesday holds an important spot on the calendar for the presidential primary process. 15 states plus 1 U.S. territory head to the polls. Politicat's Victoria Ryan has a preview of this monumental evening.
Thanks, Paris. With so many voters heading to the Super Tuesday polls, it's arguably one of the most important days in U.S. politics. The polls will be closing in all of these states in 1 week's time. According to the New York Times, 36% of the Republican delegates are on the ballot on March 5th. The idea of Super Tuesday has been around since the 1970s, with the number of states holding primaries on this day varying by election. Originally, the term Super Tuesday referred to one of the last Tuesdays of the primary season. Since 1984, states began front-loading the primaries, and we began to see Super Tuesday as we know it. None of the most prominent presidential battleground states have their primaries on this Super Tuesday, but these primaries may mark a key inflection point in the race for Republican nominee. This past weekend, former President Donald Trump won the South Carolina primary. This brought Trump one step closer to claiming the title of GOP nominee, and was a significant loss for Nikki Haley in her home state. This makes Super Tuesday even more important for Haley, as victories in these states are crucial for remaining competitive in this race. Haley has said that she is committed to staying in the race through Super Tuesday.
However, after losses in South Carolina, Iowa, and New Hampshire, it is highly speculated that she will drop out of the race soon after Super Tuesday.
Thanks, Victoria. Keep an eye out for Super Tuesday results on the night of March 5th.
With Northwestern students hailing from around the country, voting looks a bit different for everyone. Politicat's Fiona Bolzan joins us now with more on how students are planning to cast their ballots. Fiona?
Young people historically have had a low voter turnout. In the 2022 midterms, just 23% of eligible voters between 18 and 29 came out to the polls, according to the Tufts Center for Information and Research Civic Learning and Engagement. Additionally, 36% of all voters voted by mail in the midterms, according to the Pew Research Center. For the upcoming primaries, many students have chosen to vote by mail, including first-year Mia El-Yafi, who's from Houston, Texas.
I do plan to vote via mail. I requested my ballot today, but they do require you, if you email your ballot in, like if you email the request for your ballot, you also have to send in the physical copy. So I sent my fax today, and then I have to mail it in tomorrow.
States have different laws regarding absentee ballot requests, and some students have experienced struggles navigating these complex systems.
They didn't send it to me. They didn't send me a letter either saying, no, you don't get it. My sister, who goes to college elsewhere, also requested a mail-in ballot, and hers got sent to our house, even though she requested it and changed her address at where she is, because she can't really fill out the mail-in ballot if she doesn't get it.
Changing voter registration is also an option. Some students chose to switch their voter registration from their home state to Illinois, hoping for an easier process. Yet even this decision comes with challenges.
I just decided to vote in Illinois since I felt the policies there affected me more. And then so I thought I was going to be able to vote in person, which was going to be kind of exciting. But then it turns out that the primary election is while I'm on spring break, so I am going to be in Massachusetts during the Illinois primary.
Despite the difficulties in the voting process, there are many initiatives aimed to get students to vote on campus, including NU Votes, an action that hopefully students will take advantage of this year.
Thanks, Fiona. For more information on how to register, visit the NU Votes website or the Instagram at NU Votes.
Politicat now heads down to the Palmetto State, where Lance Wilhelm covered which candidates college students are voting for this election cycle. Lance?
College students, like the ones here at the University of South Carolina, may not be the most active voters this year, but they are an indication of the future of politics in the United States. And with the South Carolina Republican primary on Saturday, young conservatives had to make the choice between former President Donald Trump and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. Ahead of the primary, I asked students who they were voting for.
So I'll actually be voting for Nikki Haley. I think our previous presidents, both Biden and Trump, they have done some great things, but they've also done some pretty not so great things.
College students grew up in the post-Trump era, known for its polarization and intense political rhetoric. Haley, to some, represents a return to a more traditional Republican Party. But students tell me they don't want to go back.
Even though I don't agree with most of Donald Trump's antics and, some of his, just stands on how he conducts himself and different things like that, I will vote for him.
As a whole, many students say Trump is the choice for young conservatives. What makes them want to stick with Trump? Noah Lindler, vice president of USC College Republicans, says it comes down to two words: America first.
He talks about the issues that really affect everyday Americans and affect young voters. So I think that's what really draws people in.
USC, Clemson, and Winthrop University College Republicans all jointly endorsed Trump earlier this month. Endorsing Haley, Lindler says, was barely even considered.
Everybody had the choice. Everybody decided individually that unanimously we were going to endorse Trump.
Trump and Haley will face off again in 15 more states next week on Super Tuesday. In Columbia, South Carolina, I'm Lance Wilhelm, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Lance. Although Trump had another dominant performance in South Carolina, things could change when Super Tuesday happens next week.
Turning back to campus, Politicat's Alexia Cadota-Browner camped out at the Rock to find out what issues are most important to students this election cycle.
Welcome to Politicat's Rock Talk. Today we are at the Rock, which is outside of Kresge Hall, asking students what political issues they care about and why.
I would say one political issue I care about is Palestinian liberation. It's very important to me, as I believe that all people have a right to live on the land that they do, and I also believe that foreign governments should not be able to indiscriminately destroy the land that other people occupy.
I really care about protecting abortion access and
the right to choose, because I think it's something really important for people to be able to make that decision for themselves and have privacy on that decision.
I care a lot about women's rights just because as a woman, our voices need to be heard and we need more representation in our community. We've come such a long way, and I think women empowerment is so important to our society.
I would say voting, especially when it comes to women's rights, because I'm from Texas and we do not have a great government right now, and it's really hard to receive like actual health care for women and support. So.
I'm very concerned about how technology is used to make the lives of people worse, and I think we could definitely make a movement as a generation to make technology actually improve our lives.
Thank you for watching this episode of Rock Talk, taking what some of these students mentioned about the political issues they care about. Maybe you can find something that you also want to be an activist for.
Thanks, Alexia. Make sure to research your local politicians to see where they stand on issues, and so that you can make an informed decision come election time. Next, we dive into Chicago's migrant crisis, an issue crucial to voters during this campaign season.
Plus, an exclusive interview with Illinois Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky.
My narrative, since I've been locked up and kind of made my transition, has been like redemption, accountability.
When I come into the classroom environment, every individual that sits amongst me takes education seriously.
Welcome back. The Alabama Supreme Court has ruled frozen embryos are legally children and that individuals can be held liable for destroying them. The decision caused major distress for IVF centers and women seeking treatment statewide. Multiple Alabama IVF clinics paused treatment until further notice over the fear that procedures could trigger charges of wrongful death of a minor. Additionally, this fear of legal action has resulted in Alabama's largest hospital ceasing all embryo transfers out of state due to a drastic decline in companies willing to ship them. Multiple legislators have sprung into action, working to protect IVF clinics and transports so that they may continue without worry of legal repercussions. Even former President Donald Trump has come out in support of IVF, saying on Truth Social last week, quote, "We want to make it easier for mothers and fathers to have babies, not harder."
Immigration is a top issue for voters this election cycle. In a new poll by UT Austin, both Democrats and Republicans cite the border to be in crisis. Among many cities acting as key destinations for many migrants is Chicago. Politicat's Angela Zhang is here to give us some insight into the recent immigration developments in the area and what residents are saying.
Thanks, Aria. Since August of 2022, over 35,000 asylum-seeking individuals have arrived in Chicago from Texas. Now, what's primarily causing this influx? Well, it's a campaign called Operation Lone Star, a Texas Indigent Defense Commission-funded operation aiming to curb illegal immigration. Texas Governor Greg Abbott oversees the program, one that's flown over 100,000 migrants to major cities in the U.S. Chicago makes up 35% of that number. January and February has seen a lull in incoming migrants, however. Some Chicago migrant shelters have thus closed in the past few weeks. One of them, North Park Village Nature Center, will instead be used as a polling center. Families were moved into apartments or other shelters. Even so, local citizens reveal mixed opinions. That ongoing surge has put financial pressure on the city, which takes money from both taxpayers and a smaller federal fund to support migrants. While some, like Governor J.B. Pritzker, have called for multi-million-dollar packages to fund incoming individuals, Mayor Brandon Johnson has not yet come to an official decision about additional migrant aid. Some Chicago residents are speaking out against using their money being used for the crisis. Others have pressured Mayor Johnson to allow migrants to stay in shelters for longer periods, more than the 60-day cap Johnson set for people staying in city-operated shelters. As a result, he's delayed the eviction deadline. Given that shelters are temporary, migrants in Chicago currently face the challenges of obtaining work permits and long-term leases. The conditions of shelters are also in question, following the recent death of a 5-year-old boy who died from infections at a large shelter in Pilsen.
Thanks, Angela. We'll keep you updated with the latest surrounding Chicago's sanctuary communities.
Keeping things local, Illinois primary elections will take place in less than a month on March 19th. Polling shows Trump leading Haley by a wide margin in Illinois, but with over 20 state primaries between then and now, there's no guarantee that the South Carolina governor will still be in the race. Trump remains on the ballot in Illinois after the state's election board ruled in his favor last month. The decision comes as voters in the state tried to remove Trump from the ballot for his role in the January 6th Capitol attack. Meanwhile, the president isn't the only thing on the primary ballot. All 17 Illinois congressional seats will hold primaries, though in Illinois' 9th district, which includes Evanston and Northwestern, longtime Representative Jan Schakowsky faces no Democratic challenger. Logan Schijano spoke with Schakowsky this morning about the busy primary season, key issues in Congress, and her political future.
I'm joined now by Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. Thank you so much for joining Northwestern News Network today.
Logan, thank you very much for having me on the NNN. I appreciate it.
So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that have been going on in Congress. We just did a segment on our show kind of highlighting some of the issues in Chicago with the migrant community, and obviously that's been a big talk of Congress. The bill kind of fusing immigration along with aid to Ukraine and Israel kind of fell flat after President Trump came out against it. Is Congress failing Americans, Ukrainians, Israelis by not being able to get this bill through?
Well, the Republicans have been, this session of Congress, it's been the least productive of any session. And it has really nothing to do with partisan fighting. It really has to do with the Republicans can't get themselves to agree. But in the meantime, we have some very important issues on the table right now. Our supplemental budget, our budget for the year, and that supplemental budget is what you were talking about. That includes, we had hoped was going to include humanitarian assistance in Gaza, help for Ukraine, which is pretty desperate right now, and some support for the state of Israel as well. The Republicans wanted to attach to that issues about the border, our southern border. And it's really been difficult to move forward. Unclear, even at this moment, if we're going to be able to do that.
I want to ask you about the 2024 presidential race. A new Harvard-Harris poll shows in a hypothetical head-to-head, Trump leading Biden by 6 points in that poll, and he would still be leading if he was convicted in some of his cases, according to that poll. Does that concern you at all, that President Biden is trailing in that poll?
Well, first of all, the latest poll that I saw had Biden slightly ahead. But I don't want to talk about the poll so much. I believe that Joe Biden is, of all my time, he is the most powerful and has been the most effective president that I have seen delivering for the American people. But regardless, I think people who have their qualms about him, whatever happens, Donald Trump will be worse.
I know you said you don't like polls, but I'm gonna give you one more.
Okay.
An ABC poll shows that 86% of Americans think President Biden is too old to be president. You've known him for a long time. You're close in age to him. Do you think he's too old?
So, I think that Joe Biden is pretty old. Nancy Pelosi, the amazing Nancy Pelosi, is even older. And Donald Trump was in high school at the same time as Joe Biden was. This is not like, there's this huge age gap between them. And frankly, I think if you listen carefully these days with Donald Trump, he's been really strange And some of his rhetoric, it doesn't even continue to make any sense. On the other hand, Joe Biden is sharp as a tack.
You're running for a 14th term and to represent Evanston and other areas around here in Northwestern, of course. Why do you want to stick around and come back to Congress for 2 more years?
Well, I want to be part of changing the dynamic in the Congress right now, and really in the country. I think that we have an opportunity, especially if we win the House, which I am very confident about, the House, the Senate, and the White House. We, the United States of America, the people could usher in the most progressive era that we have seen in this country for generations. We could address the issues of gun violence, which we can't get a handle on because of the Republicans. We could restore reproductive rights for women. We could pass legislation to do that. We could address climate change, which is so essential. This is it. Time is up.
Well, Congresswoman, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for talking with Northwestern News Network today.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
For more of Logan's conversation with Schakowsky, be sure to check out NNN's social media in the coming days. Coming up, we bring you one final update on the Michigan primary happening right now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Trying to work my way out of the prison system was the most difficult challenge of my life. It only became tangible once I became a Northwestern student.
Welcome back. A new book, American Mother, explores Diane Foley's search for answers after her son, Medill alumni James Foley, was kidnapped and later murdered by ISIS in 2014. Politicat's Louis Castaneda spoke with the VP of the James Foley Foundation about the new book and what challenges current American hostages are facing abroad.
A mother desperate for answers, confronting one of her son's killers. The upcoming book, American Mother, written by Colin McCann, tells the story of Diane Foley's struggle after her son James Foley was kidnapped and killed by ISIS.
I think a reader of Diane's book, American Mother, would see pretty clearly just what it means to have that experience of having a loved one held overseas.
James Foley graduated from Medill in 2008. He was a freelance journalist covering the Syrian civil war when he was abducted in 2012. 2 years later, a shocking video was posted to YouTube showing the extremist group beheading Foley. The James Foley Legacy Foundation was started by Diane after she faced challenges dealing with the Obama administration in the years her son was held hostage.
There was very little information that was being provided by the government to the family.
Foley's advocacy helped lead to a national review of the handling of hostages abroad and the passing of the Levinson Act in 2020.
The Levinson Act, which puts into very legal terms who can qualify for a prisoner swap. And it's the State Department that makes that determination.
Kelly saying states are arresting American nationals for political reasons.
They're basically hostages.
With American hostages still in Syria, China, and Russia, Gray says their loved ones are facing an uphill battle at home to declare them wrongfully detained.
The families are fighting to get that declaration or designation.
Gray saying a key goal should be to prevent these situations from happening in the first place.
I'm not sure if anyone has a clear prevention strategy just yet, but we need one. We would all prefer to prevent the hostage taking versus have to deal with the consequences of someone being held hostage.
Louis Castaneda, Politicat.
Thanks, Lewis. American Mother will be sold in the U.S. beginning March 5th.
And as we come to a close tonight on Politicat, we want to give you an update on where things stand in the Michigan primary. According to the Associated Press, Donald Trump leads Haley in 41,000 votes to 20,000 votes, with just over 6% of the vote in.
That wraps up a packed Politicat show for all of our viewers tonight. Thanks for tuning in to see how politics are shaping the nation and abroad.
Stay tuned in the spring to see more political coverage as the 2024 presidential election gets closer. I'm Paris Franzway.
And I'm Aria Wozniak. Have a wonderful evening and good night.
Awesome. Thank you.